and I'll be doing my oral presentation over F. Scott Fitzgerald's short story, The Crack Up. It's the most recent short story we've discussed. And before I get into the story, I'll talk briefly about F. Scott Fitzgerald. He had great qualities to relate to. He was very appreciative and understanding of different people and their different points of views. His mind was his real blessing and his curse at the same time. He was a very creative man. He was intellectual. However, he tended to live in his head. He read a lot. He talked about life and observed life without completely being immersed in it. But like I said, he was very smart, intellectual. He went to Princeton, eventually dropping out to focus on writing. He's probably most notably known for the story The Great Gatsby, and also Curious Case of Benjamin Button, stories I've read throughout high school. And in this short story, The Crack Up, Fitzgerald's really, it's a sudden change from a life of success and glamour to one of emptiness and despair. 1929, the stock market crashed, bringing the music of the jazz age to a screeching halt. Times changed, and the movies as well as radio are becoming more advanced. So he felt like, as a writer, his occupation was a time of the past, even quoting himself, "I became bitter about such things as the sound of the radio," end quote. And the market for the print media was changing as well. People were turning away from the literature and toward new forms of entertainment, like radio and movies. Even people's tastes were shaped differently, and partly because of escapism and also the economic reality of the Depression. Books cost only a few dollars each, but the movies cost a few cents and provided hours of entertainment. A year later, in 1930, F. Scott Fitzgerald was 34, and he's already past the peak of his fame, health, and marriage. His wife, Zelda, was suffering from mental illness, which took a toll on their family. She spent half the decade shuttling between different hospitals in Europe and the U.S., racking up multiple medical bills. By the mid-1930s, F. Scott Fitzgerald himself was suffering from a mental crisis, in which he quoted, "There is a different sort of blow that comes from within," end quote. He also described the feeling as, quote, "that you don't feel until it's too late to do anything about," end quote. And I'm sure most of us can relate that quote to a specific part of our lives. And he stated early on that he began to develop depression, and he could only tolerate being around a select few types of people. However, as time progressed, he didn't have the same desire to be around anyone at all. By the end of the story, Fitzgerald actually had become really bitter towards life and people as well. He no longer was interested in being around anyone. And he also believed that he couldn't trust anyone that wasn't rich. Now, his short story, The Crack Up, has the famous metaphor used referring his life to a cracked plate comparison. His thinking was, if this cracked plate is indeed cracked, is it even worth fixing? He linked that to his own physical, emotional, and personal life. He too felt as if he was a broken writer and all his glory days were behind him. Therefore, was his life worth fixing, even if he was in his 30s? F. Scott Fitzgerald ultimately regretted things he didn't do when he was younger, such as the desire to play football and join the war were two specific examples he pointed out. He took a trip to self-examine himself in the later years of life. He suffered mentally and physically and emotionally. long enough to the point where he started to feel compassion and hypersensitivity to those who are suffering now. He wanted to search for a fresh start and regain the old confidence and persona he once had and start on a different path mentally through life. Unfortunately, F. Scott Fitzgerald died from a heart attack in 1940 at the age of only 44. And if he did gain the confidence and persona, and we all hope he did, that's a good ending to the story. But bottom line, we can all take advice and lessons from this. And as in the previous essay we wrote, I said the same thing, that we are in control of our own lives. And you can't go through life regretting things you didn't do. So you can either ride the wave or life can pass you by. Thank you.